We can talk about how continue to talk about some of these championship games just in general. Um, as far as the Power Five goes, we kind of mentioned LSU being the representing the SEC West. We know Georgia is going to be in the SEC
SEC
East,
East, sure.
so we kind of have that laid out for us. That one's pretty cut and dry. If we move on to the Big Ten, we have the both sides aren't really um, both sides haven't really revealed themselves yet, right?
Right.
We still have the game later in the year between Ohio State and Michigan. That's going to determine the Big Ten East winner, and you know that that
That
that
pretty much
that pretty
determines
much
the whole
determines who wins.
conference.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
whole conference. So we still have that going on. The West is still in flux. You have even teams like Iowa and things like that still in the mix. So yeah, the Big Ten is one to watch for, but really, you're really just watching for the winner of that
Michigan.
Ohio State Michigan game. And then, look, the Pac-12 might be the most interesting with all the pieces in flux right now. You have Oregon still fighting for that spot. UCLA is still in the mix. I mean, they're playing USC this weekend. That's a huge game.
Right.
Um, and then you still have Utah lurking as well, and they could certainly
Make a push for
yeah,
that.
make a push for that and get in. We saw them; they're the team that beat USC so far this year. The only team to do so. So you certainly can't sleep on them as well. If you move to the um, ACC, we have Clemson on one side and what looks like to be a North Carolina team on the other side. This is an interesting conference in the fact that if North Carolina can stay, they have one loss. If they can stay undefeated throughout and come away with a win against Clemson in the championship game, that might be
That's
enough to get them into the
in the
playoffs.
playoffs. Yeah, for sure.
So they're a little bit of a sleeper team here where they can make that playoff push if things go their way and sneak into that number 4 spot, depending on what happens with some of the other teams, right?
Right.
It'll depend on what happens with the next conference that we talk about in the Big 12. Um, TCU, who we talked about earlier, they're gonna make this Big 12 championship game at this point. We know they're in. The next best record is going to be with them because they don't have the whole divisional thing going on. So
Right.
yeah, and that'll be a battle between a few teams. I think actually Kansas State is looking like probably the likely team to
For
go
to
against
verse
them.
them.
Yeah, which will be a fun battle.
How do you think that matchup ends up?
Well, yeah, I mean, two great offenses. It'll be interesting. I mean, I wonder if Kansas State would be favored in that game. That would be interesting to see. I mean, at this point, it's hard to pick against TCU, although there is this feeling of inevitability that
Eventually, they're gonna get that loss
yeah.
for
So
somewhere in their schedule.
yeah, so the feeling around that program from outsiders is certainly that, but if you're picking games, it's hard to pick against TCU now that we've seen them be able to just pull out wins a number of ways, and they're fairly consistent with how they play. They always play hard. If the offense is working, you can lean on the defense. If you're giving up points on defense, the offense is able to bail you out on the back end.
Right.
In the fourth quarter, they're great in fourth quarters. So yeah, just interesting to see all around. What I will say, out of all the Power Five conferences, it does seem like it's clear, right, that the Big Ten and the SEC are the only teams that probably have a shot of getting two teams into the playoff.
Right.
But it's probably tough. Probably the SEC has the best chance because of Tennessee. That's not even going to make the conference championship game. But for the Big Ten, it'd be hard for Ohio State or Michigan to get in as a loser
Right.
unless a lot of things happen and a lot of teams kind of eliminate each other from the mix here.